to prep our sleeve cuff. In order to prep the sleeve cuff, you fold it in half, right sides together, fold one edge down 3/8 inch and press. Then you will finish each side seam. Once you've done that, your cuff will look like this. Your sleeve cuff is added to your sleeve starting at and ending at the binding. You want the binding that comes from the front part of your sleeve to close over the back part of your sleeve. So that binding needs to fold towards the wrong side of your sleeve so that when it closes, you no longer see the binding itself. In order to do that, just turn it under when you pin it to the cuff. You're going to place your cuff right sides together on the raw edge of your sleeve. You want the folded edge to be touching the sleeve itself. Remember, the front side of your sleeve is going to be folded under. That will meet up to the edge of the seam. Do not let it go all the way to the edge of the cuff. Pin that in place. You're going to continue to pin all the way around your cuff until you get to the opposite edge. Now what you want to do is push the folded edge away from where you've pinned. When you sew your seam, you want to be sure not to catch the folded edge. So just go ahead and push that away as best you can from where you've pinned. Now we're going to sew or serge to complete our seam. Now that we've completed our seam, you want to fold your cuff right sides out. Go all the way around your cuff and then use your favorite tool to push your cuff corners out to get a crisp, clean corner. Now you're going to refold your cuff in half, wrong sides together. After you've done that, you're going to press your seam towards the cuff. You want your seam to be hidden when you top stitch. Your folded edge will cover your seam, so go around your cuff, making sure that your seam is hidden by your folded edge. Using a lot of pins during this process will help you when you're top stitching. It will help you to make sure that not only is your seam covered, but your folded edge is where it needs to be. Take the time to do this and you will thank me later. Now we're going to top stitch our cuff. Top stitch around all edges of your cuff. You can use either snaps or buttons on your Ramona cuff. In order to add them, measure 1 inch away from the edge of your cuff. This is the amount of overlap that you should have on your cuff. If you're using snaps, you will put a snap in the middle of that 1 inch gap. If you are using a button, you will place your button in the middle of that 1 inch gap, and your buttonhole should end at that 1 inch marker. Your buttonhole will be on the top of your cuff and the button will be on the bottom. If you've done a buttonhole, a little tip when you're seam ripping your buttonhole, place a pin in front of the ending stitches on each side of your buttonhole. When you seam rip, you will seam rip between those pins, and this should help you to not seam rip through those stitches and through your cuff. You're all done with your cuff. Now repeat this process on your opposite cuff and you're good to go. Let's get started on our button placket. You need to prep your placket. You're going to fold it right sides together. One side folds down 3/8 of an inch, and then you finish one short edge. You're going to place your prepped placket right sides together with your bodice. The folded edge will be at your bodice. Pin or clip the button placket to your bodice. Once you've pinned your button placket, push the folded edge of the placket away from the seam line. Once you've done that, complete your seam. Now fold your button placket right sides out. Use your favorite tool to push the corner of the button placket out for a crisp edge. Press the seam towards the button placket. When you close your button placket, the 3/8 inch folded edge will cover the seam. Now pin your button placket, securing the seam inside. Top stitch your button placket, making sure to catch your folded edge and seam inside. Repeat the process with the opposite side of your bodice. Great job! Let's tackle this collar stay. I've got my prepped collar and prepped collar stay pieces. I've got the one collar stay with interfacing and a 3/8 inch folded edge that's pressed. You're going to sandwich your collar between the two collar stay pieces, right sides together. The collar will sit between the rounded edges. You will have about an inch of overhang from the collar stay to where the collar begins on each side. Pin the collar stay pieces together, catching the collar in between. Sew to complete your seam, making sure to catch the folded edges. Trim the seam allowance. Now that you've completed your seam, grab your bodice so we can attach this collar. The first thing you need to do is separate the collar stay pieces. The unfolded edge of your collar stay will meet the neckline of your bodice, right sides together. The button tab will sit at the seam that you just completed on your collar stay. Pin the collar stay to the neckline of your bodice at a 1-to-1 ratio. Sew or serge to complete your seam. Now that you've completed your seam, you will press your seam towards the collar stay and fold the collar stay together. You will use the 3/8 inch folded edge to cover the seam, much like the process we've done with the button tab and cuffs. Pin the collar stay, catching the seam inside. Make sure your seam is fully enclosed inside your collar stay. Top stitch your collar stay to complete. Once you've top stitched, you can finally admire the amazing shacket that you've made. All you have left to do is add your buttons and you're done. Fantastic job!